It's Today in EVE Online, Wednesday, February 19th, 2020. I am Matterall. Today we're going to check in on the North. In a few minutes, we'll have Killah Bee, an FC4 Northern Coalition, come in and tell us what's been going on up there. I see also we have Sort Dragon in the Discord audience talking with people. So we'll try to get the latest for you on what's going on in the North. First, we will check out some of the most violent systems in EVE Online for this Tuesday. Sorry, Wednesday. Yikes. Time's going fast. We had a holiday in the United States on Monday, so I am behind. Okay, a lot of the action in the last 24 hours for nullsec. That's 0.0 security space. Top of the list is Venal. Second is Catch. Now, Venal has 611. Catch has 689 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours. And then Delve has 608. That's unusual. That's a lot of destruction there. They might be doing something internal. Who knows? And then the fourth spot is Deckline with 446. So again, you have Venal and Deckline from the north have about 1,000 ships destroyed between them. Not very much for a war. I think it's all a cleanup activity now. Anyway, so they're just not much going on there. But this is interesting. Catch is legacy territory, or Brave to be exact. That's a lot of destruction there, and Delve too. Belongs to the Imperium, so those are both like two empires. There must be some stuff going on there. Let's have a look at currently everything looks normal. There's no big fights, it looks like, that are happening right now that I can tell. And in the last 24 hours, the most violent system in nullsec was in Deckline for 250 ships. It's about half of what happened in the last... It's about half of what happened in that whole region happened in one system's 8S2, 8 TAC. 256 ships destroyed there. 214 of those escape capsules destroyed. Most violent systems in low-sec is Jan. That's a funny little system in Lone Trek. I love it. Jan is so easy to say. And it's on the border of Tribute, I believe. So... yeah, so also in low-sec systems that are busy, again, you have Black Rise. The region is always busy, and you have Hikkonen. There's a lot of Conans in Black Rise, but Hikkonen had 35 ships destroyed. Again, last 3 hours. Onanen had 22 ships destroyed in the last 3 hours. And Jan, as I mentioned before, had 36 ships. In the last 24 hours, Tama tops the list with 316 ships destroyed, 170 pods destroyed. And you have Analuri in Black Rise, 252 ships destroyed, 30 of those pods destroyed. And in the number 3 spot in the Citadel, you have Onato, that's better. That's 101 ships destroyed, 87 pods. That's a good high percentage of pods destroyed there. That is low sec for you. Most violent systems in high sec. First place is Jita with 72 ships. Second place, Nyara, which is in Domain, which is basically between the two trade hubs of Jita and Amar. So you can expect that things die there all the time because they get camped. And they have 109 ships destroyed in the last 3 hours. That tells me there's been a camp there recently. In the last 24 hours in high sec space, Jita from the Forge, that system has nearly 2,000 ships destroyed and a huge number of pods destroyed, 1,867. Normally, the police don't destroy pods. And since almost all the pods were destroyed of the 1,900 ships that were destroyed, that tells me that these are probably war-decked people that are able to be destroyed without repercussions. So that's player versus players, in other words. And that is the last 24 hours in JITA, the number one spot as usual, way beyond everything else on the list. So we'll just move on. And this is what I wanted to check today. Most active systems for NPC kills. Again, this is ratting. And I wanted to see if Delve was competing. It looks like it is the same as it's been in the last few weeks. A little more Delve showing up on the list. So Delve has definitely gotten off its butt and is ratting like crazy in their area. That's the Imperium's area. So in Oasa, in the last 24 hours, the system RJBC TAC had 62,000 NPCs destroyed. In the same region, a different system called XTAC 9 had 61,000 NPCs destroyed. And here's where it gets interesting. In the third spot over the last 24 hours, you have to move down to Delve, where STAC 6 has generated 53,000 NPC kills. And number 4 spot is also taken by Delve, and that is 7UTB TAC has 52,000, nearly 53,000 NPCs destroyed. So now you're seeing a lot more balance in the top 10 slots for NPC kills, basically dominated by Oasa or Delve. Those two regions are on fire for NPC kills. So that's basically the Imperium versus Winter Coalition. And what's funny about that is Winter Coalition is on deployment up north, helping out Pandemic Legion and Northern Coalition in the Northern War, yet their ratting is still going pretty well. To a lesser extent, the Imperium is also deployed to the north, fighting against Fraternity, Winter Coalition, Northern Coalition, and Pandemic Legion on the side of Dead Coalition. They are not in a robust deployment, so they have more people to rat in Delve, and that looks like those guys are actually ratting now. It's going to be interesting because January, I think, Oasa is going to overtake Delve as far as ratting. I think February is up for grabs. No. January numbers are already out, or should be out. I don't know if I saw those. I'll have to look. February is going to be interesting. I think Oasa is going to take it, though. That's Fraternity. Okay. Let's look at anything suspicious on the iHub boards. Ashra Khan and Scalding Pass. I always like to see Ashra Khan. Trigger Happy. I think Trigger Happy might be in a little bit of trouble. They lost their leader and founder, and I think they have a deep bench of FCs, but we're seeing in Tribute and UMI TAC, KK system, they have a, an iHub that is has a timer in, 6 minutes, so anytime now. Don't know if it'll be contested, but we'll get more information on Trigger Happy. Check in with him later to see how they're doing. What you're seeing in the next day is a lot of stuff, a whole lot of stuff in Branch. Wow, look at that. Let's actually type in Branch just to isolate it. That must be maybe 25 iHubs are going down in the next day or two. So this is a cleanup effort for sure. You don't take on that much. You don't take on that many objectives unless you are going to just burn through them without facing resistance. So this is now definitely a cleanup effort in Branch. It looks like just about every iHub, or maybe half the iHubs in that entire region are being reinforced. If I'm not mistaken, they probably want to time those for a weekend so they can get the most amount of players on in the game to the actual destruction, because you're feeding your players kill board stats when you let them destroy things, and you get the most amount of players on the weekends, so it follows those are probably being timed for the weekend. Yeah, Branch is unbelievable. You also have a couple iHubs that belong to Ranger Regiment in decline. 2 TAC K and a very famous system, YOA or YAO. It's YA0 TAC. That was, I believe, the headquarters of the Goon Swarm when they were in a decline years ago. Those two are slated for this weekend as well. So you see Branch and a little bit of decline basically targeted, being lined up for this weekend. That is a pretty much, well, it's going to be a big weekend for iHubs getting destroyed. Looking at big kills, see if we spot anything interesting here. Well, actually, that first one is interesting. That happened February 19th, today. I don't know how long ago it was, but we have a small Occator, which is a deep space transport. That's a pretty hefty ship. It's a T2 hauler, basically. 34 billion destroyed in it. Just wanted to look to see like where the majority of that came from. It looks like it's a lot of people moving. I mean, it looks like a person moving a lot of their things, so it all just adds up to that amount. I don't see any major drop. Yeah, it's just a lot of stuff. Killed by Holiday Campaign. Oh, this was ganked in Narja. Remember, we were talking just now. Yeah, we were just talking a minute ago about Narja being between 2 trade hubs, and looks like there's a lot of activity there in the last 3 hours. Well, here is one of the victims of that activity. And this guy from Whiskey Brothers just lost 34 billion in an Occator. Deep space transport is a little safer than a normal hauler. It's bulkier, it's tankier, but when you're in high sec, usually the people who are going to gank you and suicide gank you, those people are going to be able to take out even a tankier transport ship like that. Same system. Here is another victim of that, the ganking that's going on in Narja. This one is a jump freighter. That alone hurts when you lose a jump freighter. A jump freighter is actually tankier than a normal freighter, and these are much, much bigger ships, maybe 10 times bigger as far as cargo space than the haulers. And jump freighters have the added advantage of being able to totally skip gates and just jump within a 5 light year radius, or no, 10, 9 or 10, I forget. Anyway, a large light year radius. So they can just bypass all these ganks if they want to, if they're going in that direction. So this is an ugly kill. This one died in Narja. And that's probably one of the most dangerous gates is the Narja gate to Stargate Kapatunen. That's a choke point for trade. And a lot of deaths happen there. This looks like it was a huge delivery of items. I see when I see these kinds of giant lists with erratic numbers, it tells me that this is somebody's like industrial operation that they're moving, because there's no pattern to the items that they have. So this is probably somebody moving their headquarters or their stuff. This is always sad for me because I know how long it takes to earn all that stuff, and it's pretty devastating to people when they lose that. Let's see. So those are 2 major hits in the last 3 hours in Narja. Be careful if you're in that area. Okay, and the last one for today is Tinal. That's up north in the war zone area, and you have a jump freighter killed there, and that's normal. In that jump freighters are the ones found in nullsec, since you need to be able to jump systems, not travel through gates in your freightering. This might be evacuation. Basically a refugee getting caught, lost 18 billion. It's not too bad considering the jump freighter itself is about half that. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know what group this is from, but it might be. A lot of industrial groups, even in the north, won't belong to the actual Sov Holding alliance. They will belong to. They will be either out of the alliance, or they will be in a industrial alliance, but they won't actually be on the inside the main group. And the reason for that is you don't want to kill like this, which that one was kind of small, it was under 20 billion. But you don't want that kill on your corporation or your alliance's kill boards, because it makes you look bad. And it's just kind of an accidental kill. So you want these kind of outsourced to different corporations that they don't care about grooming their kill boards. At least it used to be that way. I think it still is to some players.
Hey, Matterall, do you know how jump freighters are killed, or at least a good portion of them?
How?
So
This is
you see
miso, by the way.
this, yes. So you can see this in Ignoten. It's 4 jumps or 3 jumps from Jita.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have jump freighters come in from Nullsec or the surrounding areas to stage there. And what happens is they'll jump to a Sino and then hit warp to the gate. So there's a player, his name is Pornmaker. You can actually search up his account. And he just sits in Karoo, a jump away,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll just light his own Sino, jump to the Sino, and insta kill the jump freighter. So you'll see these 13 build kills in Igno, and they will be just these instantly killed jump freighters coming in to Jita.
Yeah. So Ignoiten, I actually was eyeballing that place for a keep star. That is a system that leads to high sec space. It's a low sec system between Sinclair Zone region, which has a trade hub of Dodixie, and the Forge, which actually has the main trade hub Jita, and Perimeter now is another trade hub right next door. So Ignoitin is one of those systems that sits between those. It's probably accounts for 50 to 80% of logistics from the northern hemisphere of the map.
It's more of a side system in high sec. So is Karoo. They're more of a side high sec systems because they're surrounded by high sec. Um, and then you've got a pipeline into Olatiers and Becca and Krylier. Rancer pipe is really big for pirate gankers. So like, don't go through Rancer or Mirotem. Those are do not enter.
Yeah, those will be here. Huh? Is it still that way?
Rancer and Mirotem.
Yeah.
X13 is all up in there. Like they have one of the most firm holds on a pipeline in Losec that I've seen. I've lived in Karoo for a while,
Mm-hmm.
so
Crew is
we
low
kind
sec as
of
well.
we kind of PvP around this area, and dealing with X13 in Rancer is not fun.
Yeah, I think when I first started EVE Online, I used to live in Rorsons, right next to Thielen. I was trying my hand at being a pirate in a frigate with a small group
Oh,
of frigate guys. We got stomped really quickly, but that was our first foray into EVE Online PvP. But that was like 2009.
if you search up the alliance that lives in Karoo, it's called Dark Taboo,
Mm-hmm.
Playboy Enterprises. The owner, he still plays. He actually started playing in the first couple of months of this game, and he hasn't stopped. So he's been
Wild.
around for since the beginning.
Well, thanks, Miso. That's good information. I appreciate it. I'm going to switch over now because we want to get to this information quickly. But I want to,
Yep.
at some point, talk to you more about pirating in this area. If you're around, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
no problem. I'll stick around.
Cool. All right. So Killah Bee is here, and I want to go ahead and turn it over to him so he can give us an update on what's going on in the northern part of the map. How's it going, Killah Bee?
All right, doing fine.
It looks like
Yeah, so basically,
well, let me start. You have a lot of timers. It looks like for iHubs.
Yeah, we reinforced a bunch, but more like everything you see in branch is gonna be uncontested, right? So it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. We're just killing all the IHUBs and killing all the valuable structures in branch now. Branch and Tina is done. Branch is being finished up. Probably gonna be done by the end of this weekend. Have like 1 or 2 keep stars to kill. But those are not contested either. So it's just structure bashing at this point in branch at least, and then we're gonna put ourselves into a position where we can hit the deckline comfortably. Like there was a couple timers in deck yesterday that we went to because Test asked for help. But obviously we're not really in a spot with NC and PL and Co right now that we can effectively put pressure on the deck. So we're gonna reposition soon and then make the push in the deck line and see what happens. See if goons come to Swords 8 or not. But I don't think so. We'll see.
Is there still time? It seems like it's already.
They just deploy everything now. Like it doesn't really matter when they do it. It's not a problem.
Yeah. Well, we were looking at some of the alliances that have kind of broken off from Dead Coalition recently, heading down south to.
I don't know any of those alliances except Ranger Regiment. Like they're the only alliance I recognize. They were obviously quite a big Chinese alliance. I remember in their prime they used to form like 300 people, but most of the PvPers would probably have left for FRT by now, and then all the crabbers stayed. And yeah,
looking for crabbing space, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they're heading north. I don't know what's left of Dead Coalition. They're still. You're not facing any resistance now, are you? Are you still fighting?
Not on branch and Tina. Well, I mean, like I said, Tina is done. Branch, we're not seeing any resistance. Sometimes some smaller fleets come up to, screw with our Entoses a bit, but those we usually deal with quite easily. So no, at least in Branch and Tina, there was no resistance anymore. I don't think deckline is going to be that easy. Now that they have all the combat remainers of their coalition consolidated. That's interesting. But I think, like I said, unless goons step in, as soon as all of our supers from NCPL and FRT and everyone are deployed into deckline, they can't contest us in either time zone. So, yeah.
Wild. All right, so you're going through branch this weekend. It looks like you're setting a lot of stuff up for this weekend.
Yeah, we're putting. Today's Thursday, right?
Wednesday.
No, Wednesday. So we're putting a bunch of keep stars in the final. There's like 2 more to kill that we should kill Saturday or Sunday. I think 2 more is what we're gonna kill. Either this weekend or then the week after, like next weekend. But by the end of next week, branch is gonna be done for sure. And then we'll evaluate the current situation and then make our move. Probably gonna deploy. Obviously, we have to go closer to deckline and get a beachhead in the region because both the regional gates are quite big.
Yeah.
We don't want to go pure blind, so.
Let's actually take a look at that. I want to show people why why deckline is hard to attack, and you need to get into a better position to do it. Probably need to go to the universal map.
But yeah, like I said, once we have a foot in the door on one side of the region, deckline is a very, very long region. It's very annoying because you can't really reach that far with a lot of the jump ranges.
Mm-hmm.
So once we have a foot in the door, we can basically wipe out one region. Then you have to move to another place and wipe out the other part of the region, and then it's done.
Yeah. Do you know if you're going to go to UJY or are you going to go to DKUK? Those seem like the two.
Those are the only 2 entry points. Yeah, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. So you can see this on the map if you're looking at Dotland here with me, that there's these 2 really long rods, pipes or jumps basically, and they end at the top of deckline and at the bottom of deckline. So those are your 2 options entering deckline from branch, which is probably inevitable. But whichever one you choose, it seems like you can only kind of take on half of deckline until you get into the middle of deckline, then you can take on the other half. So the bad part, I guess, is if you have people coming at you from both sides, your escape route, I guess, would be fade.
You mean in GOTG's position now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they like the only escape route they have is through Cloud Ring into Fountain into Imperium space, right? Like there's no other test won't take them in. So it's basically only the Delph Highway, which means going Cloud Ring, and then I would say like to me the logical step is if once they realize that Decline is lost when it happens, they will probably move everything they have into I don't know which the closest Imperium keep says, but probably 6 RCQ. I'm not sure if KQK is still up. Like obviously they're gonna move into one of these Imperium keep stars, and then just take the Fountain Highway from there. Probably set up in I don't know where period basis or some shit.
Yeah, probably. That's at the very bottom.
Wherever Imperial, wherever goons allow them to stay. Yeah. So
Well, they made
that's like
space.
the logical way to
They
go.
definitely made space in period basis here. That's the southern tip of the south west. It looks like there was
They
some.
recently opened that to everybody up.
Yeah,
They also put RR there as well, so it's likely where they would end up.
it's
Maybe
like
Quarius.
bottom of the world. Yeah.
Well,
So,
the bottom for the bottom, right?
what's your relationship with Test these days? Since you're kind of fighting alongside them, are you
Yeah, it's a
guys?
bit weird because we're not really like this is everybody's gonna meme like there's like they're not very reliable sometimes. So it's hard to call them an ally because sometimes they do like weird stuff. And obviously Test is still their own entity. They have their like relationship with the Imperium, so it's all kind of fuzzy. But at least on this front right now, on the Decline front, yeah, we're working together and we're allies, right?
Mhm.
But our campaign on deck from a PanFam point of view is not reliant on Test. We can pull it off without Test as well. Test was very helpful sometimes in creating distraction timers when there was like a big timer going up in branch, and Test created some IOPS and Decline at the same time. That coalition usually decided to go for the Decline timers because that's their core region. And then we had a pretty easy shot on the branch timers. But this, like I said, from a PanFam FRT POV, we don't really need Test to finish Decline. Their presence would obviously make it easier, right? Because they can form good numbers in almost every time zone. So it'll be nice to have them around. But I know that they have their own stuff going on as well, and they have their own space and stuff. So if they have to go somewhere else, then it's fine. Like we're not too dependent on them.
Yeah. But are you guys fighting completely separate battles, or do you find yourself on the same field at times?
We show up at the same field. It's like all the time. Yesterday with the IAP timers, we were on the same field. It's not separate battles. It's both just attacking Deadco from different angles. Like Test came in from Pure Blind, and we came in from Branch and Tina.
Wow. So are you familiar with the state of the alliance from Noros the other day?
Not all the details now, but like I talked to Norris directly. I don't need to listen to his SOTA.
Yeah. So you know what's going on.
Yeah.
He formed an alliance already to take in some of the groups that are maybe defecting from Dead Coalition.
Yeah, more to come. More to come. Hopefully.
Tell us about that. Like, how does that work, and why does he do that sort of thing?
Oh, it's nice to bolster our own numbers, and some groups within that coalition are certainly competent. Like Siberian Squad is probably a prime example. Like Siberian Squad has been the military backbone of that coalition for the last 2 years, and RR has grown into the backbone as well. Now that RR is sort of dead, and so like the PvE has joined Imperium, the PvP has joined FRT. Siberian Squad is the only backbone that coalition has left. Like the numbers, the darkness, that actual darkness puts in the fleet are pathetic, right? Like every big CDA they had to defend anything, all the big numbers came from Siberian Squad and RR, and Darkness had like 100 dudes, and then like Siberian Squad has 300, and RR has 300. So Darkness himself is kind of a joke in terms of combat strength. And, we know that, like I said the other day, I feel like Hanzo's the leader of Siberian Squad and their main FC. I feel like Hanzo's the kind of person he's loyal, so he's probably going to stick with Sword until the very end, or like until there's a clear sign that there's no going back, and then we'll see what decision he makes. I'm not going to go into any details.
Yeah, so you were saying that Ranger Regiment, the Chinese alliance inside of Dead Coalition, you seeing the PvPers have moved over to the Chinese alliance on your side, to Fraternity?
No, That's pretty standard though. Like if you're interested in PvP, like back when I was still in FC for Nully, right? We got rolled by PL because they got a contract to stop us from killing Stainwagon.
Mm-hmm.
And after we got rolled by PL, PL made me an offer. Hey, you've been the main FC in UTZ for Nully for the last 3/4 of a year. Why don't you come join us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I did because clearly PL was a step up from Nully. So I was like, oh, I can further my FC career with this, and I was interested in joining the military superior group, so I did that.
Yeah. Well, plus,
And at that point, Nully was sort of dead already.
yeah. Well, that was like it had died before, but this time it was really dying. But when you make that calculation as an FC, you're looking around at what kind of aspects, like why
Depends.
would a better
Depends what you're looking for of being an FC. If you're trying to be an FC for the little guy, if you're really proud of being a super elite small scale FC, like you're not gonna join a group like Goons or NC or whatever. But for me, my goal was always to become one of the best, and one of the best FCs in the game. And by my definition of best means just how many alliances can you beat, how many other FCs can you beat. And PL at the time was the king of the game. Like there was nobody better like to join than PL. PL was basically like I don't know, like the
oh, it was
major league.
the only option for a lot of FCs really when they were looking for
Well, I mean, there was
next
still like
level.
I could have joined NC Dot back then, right? Or I could have joined Goons back then, or whoever. But Pierre was at the time, like Pierre was still considered to be the best alliance, or one of the best alliances in the game by a lot of people, anyways. Obviously, not all of them, but
Mhm.
and yeah, it was a very nice offer. I've heard before at the time. I had already known because I had some friends in PL already that had been with me in BL before and some other places, and they told me how amazing it is to be an FC in PL, because the environment was so great to be NFC and PL with all the support you get from all the people and stuff.
Mhm.
And that was confirmed. That was a great time. 2015, 2016 with PL were probably the best 2 years of EVE I ever had.
Mhm.
And it was a good time.
Well, that's what I mean. For FCs that were kind of at the top of their alliance, PL was like the only game in town that was going to be that good. I think everything else was a tier below at that point. Because I think, and this is only from what I've heard, I wasn't in PL, but a lot of the people that are in PL just know how to operate themselves. So a lot of FCing it's just easier because people know what they need to do. But maybe it's also hard because they have minds of their own. But so yeah, so that time when you switched over to Pandemic Legion, that was probably the best game in town. Times have changed though, and the game has changed, and now it doesn't seem like PL is at the top of the list anymore.
Depends how you define it. I think that the people that are still in PL and the FCs in PL are very happy with what they are, and that's perfectly fine. Just a simple fact that like the way that the game currently has to be played to be on the top of the food chain in 0-0, it's just not for everybody, right? And a lot of the people that are in Goons enjoy the gameplay that in current EVE you have to play to be at the top, which is basically crabbing, or it used to be now, anyways, with the mineral changes, whatever. You would be the most powerful alliance by having the biggest industrial backbone. So a lot of the people that like mining all day or ratting all day would join Goons, which turns out to be a big portion of the player base, but there's still a lot of players out there that don't really care for any of that and they just want to do PvP. And PL, I think, is very much at the point right now where all the people that are still in PL, they live for the PvP and they don't care about making money, they don't care about crabbing. NC Dot is a little bit like a crossover of that. We still have, like at our core, we are very much still a PvP alliance, and 90% of the people in NC, they don't really care for mining or whatever either. But we still have some people that do mine, that do rat, right?
Mm.
But we have like we're also very PvP centric, and that's fine. It's just at the moment you just have to accept the fact that when you when you when you make that decision to say, hey, I just want to focus on PvP. I don't want to set up a big industry at home. I don't want to set up a lot of miners or whatever. You're just not going to be able to compete with somebody like Goons or the Imperium. But that's fine, right? There's still plenty of content out there. And if you do it right, like we just did with this whole war in the north, we played that very smart. and we got a pretty great campaign out of it. There was a lot of cool battles. There was a lot of nice fights. There was a lot of stuff going on, and we came out victorious. So that was a good campaign, and we did that without, being Imperium or whatever, because we knew a war like this, Imperium won't directly involved, and unless they bring their supers, there's not much they can do.
Yeah.
Which is also the reason they obviously, people like Asher, they herf a lot for, we just delete all supers and titans. And to be fair, I'm in favor of making supers and titans less strong, but only if the subcap meta is also addressed. People try to look at the game in a vacuum, or at certain doctrines, and they're like, oh, we should just delete supers and titans. Nobody's going to care, right? But right now, supers and titans are the only force multiplier left in the game that can help you beat a superior subcap blob, right? So, for example, if there were no supers and titans in the game, this goon deployment with their SIG to PF tech would have a much greater impact, or could have a much greater impact on this campaign against Dead Coalition than it has right now. Because right now, if goons show up with an extra 300-man battleship fleet, well, we just drop supers and titans and we win the fight anyways, right? Mm-hmm. Because if supers and titans wouldn't exist, we couldn't do that. We would have to either outnumber the enemy with more subcaps of the same type, which we just can't do because we have less people, right? Mm-hmm. Or we would have to outplay them by just being better than them, so that we can actually beat them with less numbers. But unfortunately, in the current subcap meta, there is nothing like that. You cannot, at least in large scale, you cannot beat a 300-man Foon fleet with a well-piloted 200-man Munin fleet. That is just very unlikely to happen. If they have 100 battleships more than you have people, then you're gonna lose no matter what. And that's the problem, right? So I am in favor of nerfing supers and titans. I wouldn't even mind them being deleted, but only if they change the subcap meta in a way that you can actually outpilot your opponent again in large scale. The last time that was possible was when AHEX were still around. I'm talking about Proteuses and Legions. We used to call them AHEX, even though they're technically not AHEX.
They're Tech 3s, not AHEX.
Yeah. But we called them AHEX. Basically, everybody called them AHEX because AHEX were dead at the point. That was I remember taking a bunch of. I actually have a bunch of YouTube videos in my favorite list on YouTube. Where I was taking fights. I had 150-man Proteus Legion fleet, right? And I was fighting, I think it was XIX and some other people in Veil of the Silent. And they had 300-man Kane fleet, or 256-man Kane fleet, and then a full fleet of Drakes as well. And I was basically fighting 3 or 4 times my numbers. But simply by the fact that I could just SIG tank the Hurricanes for the most part, and the same with the Drakes. Drakes were just trash at the point and still are, obviously. But, I was able to tank almost 3 times my numbers with my ships, and I was able to beat 500 people with my 150-man fleet just by piloting it better and having the better doctrine. But that doesn't really exist anymore in the current meta. Yeah. At a certain point, it's just all about who can bring more subcaps. And that makes sense for the goons like Asher to be saying, hey, we should just delete supers and titans, because effectively they can still bring the biggest subcap blob in the game. And when you can bring the biggest subcap blob in the game and there's nothing like supers and titans anymore, then you're going to win every fight.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they also have the biggest titan and super blob in the game, but they can't just deploy that, right?
Let me before you go on to the supers and that strategy, let me just go back to what you were talking about. When you said you were SIG tanking, that's signature radius tanking, which is basically speed tanking, which means you're small enough and moving fast enough that bigger ships have a problem tracking you and applying damage. So that's a form of tanking. You never actually take the damage because you're too fast. And that takes good piloting, good FCing, good coordination with a team, and you can differentiate yourself better using that kind of a defense against the blob of battleships that is slower and clumsier and has less experienced players that know what to expect. So it tends to be a funner landscape for FCs to have that kind of AHAC meta versus other ships. All in the sub-capital arena. But now we're talking about that can't really happen because you always have the final word with capitals and super capitals, and that's what Killah Bee is going on to talk about.
No, that's not what I meant. Like,
I mean, I disagree.
Oh wait,
I mean, if
I
you've
got it
seen
wrong.
what Inner Hell's been doing.
Hold on, before we bring Inner Hell
okay,
into this.
no, okay, and I'm gonna interrupt you right there because please don't bring up wormhole stuff because that's not the scale I'm talking about. Wormholes and low sec work completely different because
Not
we're
in
not talking
Wormhole.
about 500
I'm
v
talking
500. It
about
doesn't
their
matter. Yeah, it doesn't
talking about
matter.
their
They're fighting
strategy
people.
in Nullsec.
They're not fighting a PvP group. If you send a 100-man inner hell fleet versus me, I'm gonna smash them, right? Because I'm an actual FC that knows what I'm doing in 0-0.
Yeah.
But if you, all that inner hell is doing is ganking raiders and miners, and most of these raiders and miners, they don't have a experienced combat force to protect them. So of course inner hell can farm the shit out of some renters somewhere in drones or wherever, because the response that those renters are bringing to try to defend themselves from inner hell are completely uncoordinated. They're probably not even on the same comms, and they don't have an experienced FC running stuff for them. That is true. Like you're right in the sense that that does exist in the game still, but not on a war thing. It exists in a ganking. It exists in
Okay.
when like the opponent you're fighting. Like if I'm fighting an FC that is like 1 day old, right? Like just a very brand new FC of goons, for example. Obviously, I can smash him even if he has more numbers than me because he's super unexperienced. I probably know how to counter his doctrine the best I can. So, yeah, I can win. But that's not really how we plan, right? Because we have to assume that the enemy FC is at least close to as competent as we are or as competent as we are. And in that scenario, that doesn't exist, right? But yes, it still like does exist in the game in certain scenarios, obviously. That's correct.
All right. So,
but yeah, that's not what I meant. Like, so
okay,
the
good.
reason is, right? So what I'm saying is you have the final word with supers and titans, right? And at the moment, I feel like that is necessary when you're trying, because that's the only really real force multiplier left in the game. You have bombers, right? Like, obviously, if goons bring a 300-man Typhoon fleet in and I get like a godlike bomb run, and yes, I can probably kill the entire fleet with a bomb run. But if the goon fleet FC is not stupid, he knows how to prep against bombers. He's just going to tell his fleet to orbit him at 50, which with Foons you can do easily, and they're basically immune to bombs right there. You just have them fit a smart bomb, and there's nothing a bomber fleet can do against a Foon fleet that's spread out with smart bombs fit. They're just not going to do anything, right? So besides bombers, there are no other force multipliers left in the game. The only one left is supers and titans. So if they want to remove supers or titans or heavily nerf them in terms of damage application whatsoever, I think they also need to look at the way that current subcap doctrines work. Because if you remove supers and titans from the equation completely right now, the group with the capability of forming the biggest subcap fleets at the moment is always going to dominate 0-0 no matter where they are, right? Because you can just deploy to Curse and you can throw around 2 full fleets of battleships, and there's nobody going to be able to contest it in that area, right? And that's why I think, yes, like I said before, yes, I think Supers and Titans should be nerfed. Yes, I think they're boring as fuck. For some reason, the highest ranking FCs in every alliance are the only ones allowed to FC Supers and Titans, even though it's the stupidest fleet to FC. Like, you don't need skill to FC Supers and Titans. It's super easy and it's super boring as well.
why is that? Because they move so slow?
No, because there's nothing to do. All you got to do is doomsday every 5 minutes and like shoot stuff with your guns. There's like no movement. You don't have to anchor properly. You don't have to be afraid of getting bombed. You don't have to be afraid of getting your fleet booshed. Like 99% of the mechanics of the game that make subcap combat interesting don't apply to Supers and Titans. So you just have to do nothing. You just have to broadcast targets and the opponent's Titan every 5 minutes, and that's it. Right? So that's just boring. Obviously, the reason that the high rank FCs are only allowed to FC them is because they're also worth the most. They're just the highest value assets of most alliances, right? So that's why that is the case. But when there's like a big timer, important timer, if I have to make the call between handing off the super, if I'm like the only strategic FC there, and I have to decide between handing off the super cap fleet to a junior FC or the sub cap fleet, I will always give him the super fleet because I can just tell him what to do, and he has like 10 minutes to follow my order. Whereas when he fucks up anchoring once with the mutant fleet and he flies within the enemy web range, the entire mutant fleet's dead, right? So yeah, like again, I think Supers and Titans can go. I think Supers and Titan, or they should be changed. But if they do that, they also have to look at subcaps, and they also have to just make skill-based subcap combat a thing again in larger scale as well, which at the moment just isn't really the case.
Yeah, isn't it a natural advantage for groups that have a lot of players to get rid of the supers? I'm looking at the
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like that's why people like Asher go on every talk show and say like, "Oh, we should just delete supers and titans," because it would put goons at they're already at the top of the food chain, but it would make their position at the top of the food chain even more significant because they can effectively form the largest subcap fleet in the game, period, because they have the most people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that simple, right? And then without like the only reason right now that the goon deployment didn't affect this campaign in the north at all is because whenever goons show up with their like 2 fleets of typhoons, we just bring supers and titans and there's nothing they can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
If supers and titans wouldn't exist, they would just deploy their huge subcap fleet somewhere and the campaign would be over because we can contest. Well, now we could, but previously we weren't able to contest a full Siberian squad fleet plus RR plus GOTG plus goons as well, right? Because they would just form so many people.
So, like it or not, the capitals, the super capitals, do mitigate the N+1, even though they have their own problem.
I wouldn't mind, like, the other option would, but that's dreaming. It's probably not going to happen. The other option that CCP would have would be get rid of supers and titans and introduce a new form of force multipliers, right? Something like bombers, something like, I don't know. I am not a game designer. I have no idea what, but something else, like something that allows you to beat more numbers with less people. And they can either do that by allowing you to introduce doctrines that can be piloted well and then beat other doctrines that have more, right? Mm-hmm. But even then, the problem is the current way that EVE works. There's a lot of factors that go into this, right? Because you have to keep in mind back when we did like AHEX with PL and NC, and like there were no skill injectors, right? So not everyone was able to fly a T3. So we would have an inherent advantage against alliances that had less younger pilots because we would be able to bring the top-notch doctrines to the game, and they just couldn't pilot them. But now with skill injectors, everybody just goes, I'm just going to inject that, right? And then you can fly it. And so let's say there would be a doctrine that could out-pilot your opponent by being better than them. Goons would just bring more of that doctrine, right? Mm-hmm. And again, we lose, right? Because then it's just the same doctrine against the same doctrine and so on. So that's a bit difficult. It's very difficult right now, I think. So I don't think like at the current state of EVE, deleting supers and titans is an option. Certainly they can be nerfed a bunch. I wouldn't mind that at all. I'm looking forward to whatever CCP Rise has in store for us in 1 or 2 weeks, whenever that change is coming. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I feel like it's going to be quite the boring change. I feel like it's just going to be half the EHP of supers and titans, which in the grand scheme of things wouldn't change a thing.
Well, if they have less defense and they can die quicker.
But they're still only going to die to dreads. Like, even if they halve the EHP of all supers and titans in the game right now, there's still no subcap doctrine that's going to be able to kill a super or titan on effects reps.
So it wouldn't change anything.
It wouldn't change anything at all, right? Because they would then, obviously a dread bomb would then be able to kill more supers and titans. Yes, right? Yes, that's true. But how often do dread bombs really happen, right? Like,
well, it may be a little too ambitious to think that the mineral changes are going to make the bigger ships more expensive to build. Therefore,
they will 100%.
But will it be an effect?
It'll take a while. Yeah, 100%. I think like right now you can build Titan for I think 45 to 50, depending on which Titan it is. That's going to go up drastically, right? I think if they actually keep the minerals the way they are right now, once all the big stockpiles are empty, it's going to be insane. Like the prices are going to go up a lot, which I think is great. Supers and Titans are way too cheap, but the problem also with typical CCP is like this mineral change is 3 years too late, right? At this point, goons already have 1,000 Titans. We already have 500 Titans,
more,
right?
Maybe more by now.
Yeah. So it's the damage is already done.
Yeah, but if you make them a little thinner, maybe more dread bombs take out more of them, and over time it corrects the problem. But that's going to be
hopefully.
a while.
I really do hope that, man. Like I said yesterday off the show, I know there's a lot of FCs as like Justin, like our campaign commander right now that's running this northern campaign and for NC Dot and for most of PanFam. He's a very he wouldn't take a fight where he knows he's going to lose 5 Titans, but he's going to kill 200 dreads in return. I'd do that fight every day because personally, I don't care. I would like if somebody would offer me, hey, I'm going to drop 400 dreads on you, and we're just gonna, well, actually, if it's coordinated, it's boring as fuck. But if somebody dread bombs me, right, because I wasn't careful and I didn't see the dreads coming, and I lose 10, 20 Titans, but I kill 400 or 300 dreads in return, yeah, I would do that every day. I don't care. Because that would be a blast for everybody involved, and it's kind of what those things are there for, right? Like both the dreads and the Titans. At the end of the day, that's what you want to do with them.
Here's a question from Morris. It says, question, do 2 or more supers controlled by one player have more of an effect compared to one person playing subs in 2 or 3 accounts?
So Titans, for example, are much easier to multi-box than subcaps, right? So I think dual boxing subcaps isn't really viable because, so let me explain like this. If you fly one subcap, you fly it at 100% effectiveness. You get 100% of the subcap out of it. If you dual box, I would argue you will probably, if you're really good at dual boxing, you will probably get like 80% out of each of the subcaps in terms of like full awareness. So you probably have like 100 and like maybe like 1.6 subcaps on grid, even though you're dual boxing. Whereas with Titans, when you dual box 2 Titans, you're still going to get 100% out of each Titan because it is that simple and it doesn't take much input at all. So effectively, you're going to get 2 ships out of dual boxing Titans, but you're only getting 1.6 ships out of dual boxing subcaps. And again, that's if you're really good at dual boxing. I think that most people, if they dual box subs, they're probably only at 50% effectiveness because most average line members are really bad at just flying one client already. So then flying to like most, like on the average NC dot fleet, I would say like the average line member doesn't, like if he's just flying one ship, he probably only like 75% of that ship. Because people just go AFK, they watch YouTube on the side, they watch Netflix on the side, they just don't pay attention. It's awful. A lot, unfortunately.
Yeah. And also, so it isn't, the question is in reverse. Normally, because decisions are made slowly with supers, you're really just waiting to jump in. And then at that point, you're ready to cycle your one gun. You can just do 2 of those pretty easily. And if you're doing subcaps, usually you don't have 2 fighting subcaps. You might have a utility subcap or a scout or something sitting on a gate just so you could see what's coming through. But it's not usually, unless you're running a logistics plus a subcap DPS ship. I don't.
Yeah, that's a different story. Obviously, if you run a scout and a DPS, then that's whatever. You don't really lose out on much at all. But a lot of people tend to also do box 2 DPS ships, maybe dual box a Logi, and which is I think the worst case scenario if somebody dual box like a Logi and a DPS ships. I just don't think that can work. But yeah, I mean if you dual box a scout or like a dictor and in the subcap, that is perfectly fine because you don't really need to do anything with the dictor.
You end up accidentally shooting your FC instead of healing them. Anyway, let's see. We got a bunch of questions here. Let's see. Well, I don't see any other questions. They're all answering each other's questions. Anyway, that's really interesting. So you like the mineral changes, you think, in the long run?
I think they're hilarious. I don't want to say if I like them or not, right? But I think they're hilarious. I think they're 3 years too late, but they're hilarious. And we'll see what kind of, like, I don't know enough about EVE economics. Like, I'm not stupid, right? So obviously a drastic change like this will eventually drive all price. Like, they just removed 90% of the spodumane from the game. So yeah, that's going to change stuff. That's going to drive prices up. But I'm not like how much and who and whatever. I don't know. And honestly, I don't really care either. For an alliance like us, it doesn't make too much of a difference. Yeah, we're not gonna sell Titans for 35 bill anymore. Like that's already happening because of these changes. We're just removing the subsidy, and we're kind of stockpiling our honor. We're waiting to see where the market lands. But other than that, whatever. And if, right now, battleships are hilariously cheap. A Typhoon right now, after insurance, is 80 million. If that goes up to 300 million, people are still going to fly them. So I think on the subcap scale, it's not going to change all that much. Capital-wise, I think it'll be interesting. If supers go back to 30 bill build cost and Titans go back to 100 bill in build cost, yeah, that's probably going to change stuff. I think that's going to make people keener to drop dreads. But dreads are going to go up in price as well, right? You got to keep that in mind. So I don't know. We'll see.
All boats are being lifted by this tide.
Which is
Yeah.
also why you could argue that this change is really not doing anything. Everything's just going to become more expensive, going to
When that
maybe
happens,
deflate.
though, when you slow everything down, you slow everybody down, you increase the advantage of people who got in while it was good to get in. So they're further
Yeah,
ahead.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like the funny thing is that CCP usually, again, I was obviously not part of this CSM when this change was discussed, and even if I were, I couldn't talk about it. But usually, CCP's reasoning is like, "Oh, this will nerf the big groups," but changes like this don't nerf the big groups because we already have a stockpile, and we did a lot of mining when it, like, especially this example works better with goons, right? Because they did a shit ton of mining when it was still good, so they have like these huge stockpiles now, and even us, we did pretty okay when it was decent, and
Yeah, you
smaller
did.
groups that don't stockpile, they're going to be affected much larger by this.
I remember you were out there saying, "Get in your Oracle, join me."
Yeah, I mean, at the start, like on day one, like or day one or day two, when the Rorquals were changed initially back in 2016 or whatever it was, you would make 700 million ISK per hour with one Rorqual, right? Because it was so ridiculous. Pre all the nerfs, before all the nerfs to the Rorqual.
And Oracle
And
money is easier money than ratting, isn't it?
yeah, exactly, because you don't have to do anything. And at the time, I was still casino rich, right? Because it still had all the casino ISK. Because it was prior to the casino ban.
The ban, yeah.
So I saw how much one Rorqual made, and I got 8 Rock accounts, and I got 8 Rorks, and I injected all the pilots. And on day 3, and on day 2, I saw how much money you can make. On day 3, I was sitting in a belt mining with 8 Rorks, making 8 times 7. My math is really good. 57. I was making 5.7 bill an hour mining.
Yeah. And again, that's easy money. You could do that for a while. It's not that easy, but it's definitely not having to like cycle targets and move your ship in and out and all that kind of stuff.
God, somebody's bringing up CCP's new shooter. So this is a dangerous topic. Okay, I just want to warn you because I could probably rent hours on how much I hate that CCP keeps trying to work on new games that always fail. Unless you want to call Gunjack or Valkyrie a success.
Hold your thought on that then. I just want to finish up with this. So, so the advantage it's already built in because some groups already had stockpiles is one thing. But I've also heard, this is important, and we'll cover it tomorrow in more detail as I get information, that you can still mine in sanctums, but there has to be in negative 0.8 sec. So it's very
I can see that. There's in the station sanctums, there's rocks, yeah.
Yeah, like that's actually where you can still mine. The problem is that isn't drone regions. That is Imperium owned Delve and those regions, isn't it?
Yeah, all the other, basically everything but drones is, but I don't think that's very significant amounts. I don't know how much spot or whatever is in a sanctum. I have never looked at that, but hey, whatever, we'll be fine.
Yeah. So that's kind of an unfair. I mean, if you're looking to reduce all of the minerals,
I wouldn't call it unfair. It's just whatever. Like that's one of those things that CCP would never have thought about. Like there's no way I can guarantee you that whoever designed this mineral change, he didn't go like, but what about sanctums? There's one of those. No way. Like they just forget about that kind of shit. They forget about that stuff all the time. That's usually where the CSM comes in most of the time. But like honestly, until you just mentioned it, I didn't know that sanctums had ore in them because
yeah. Well, again,
it was always so insignificant.
I have to get all the details. Really meant anything. Well, once a Rorqual gets in there, it's pretty safe because I don't think you can actually just jump into.
Yeah, you can.
Well, then I'm thinking there's something else as well. There's 2 things. I'm going to get more information and lay out the case tomorrow. But anyway, so it's interesting. The mineral changes. I have started communicating with CCP Ratati, and interesting guy, been around since 2007. I think he actually worked in the finance department, and he's super excited to be in charge of kind of the economic ecosystem of EVE Online. He's taken over a lot of balance in a lot of the economy, and he's trying to bring scarcity back into EVE Online, which is going to make people have to develop trade routes, diplomatic relations, or go to war over resources. And so you're going to see that slowly grow. in the next, I think, months
Go
and
to war
years.
over resource. That makes no sense though.
Why?
They
Because
just
you
nerfed all
lose.
of the space, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like that used to be the thing
why
with
would I go to Fountain now? Because there's just like there's no ore in Fountain. There's no ore in drones. There's no ore in Delve. Like
Not
what?
over
Oh,
ore.
maybe he has some great changes planned, but
Well, not over ore necessarily, because that some things have to be traded for. You can't just kill for everything. But other stuff, there are more changes coming. You're gonna have, I think, some changes
yeah,
where you can collect things.
I'm very skeptical about that, but we'll see. Hey, all
I
power to the guy.
Oh, it's like a wet dream for economists. They're like, oh, the
Yeah, but
shortages.
you know, I mean, how many times I've heard that before, and you know how many times it's actually been patched into the game.
I
Bagel.
I don't know.
So yeah, 0.
Lots.
So we'll see. I'm very scared. I'm generally very. I have to say, I'm probably become a bit of a bitter vet ever
Yeah.
since I resigned the CSM because I've seen what's happening inside their company, and I'm just very skeptical about everything now. But I don't want to talk too much shit. Obviously, there's
Yeah.
some very nice dudes within CCP, and I don't want to offend them. It's it's just what it is.
I don't think
I
CCP.
still love the game, right? So
Right. I don't think CCP's confidence in CCP makes this is going to sound really weird that big. It's not the big X factor. I think the new players coming into the game are the X factor, not
yeah,
necessarily the people who can turn the knobs and try to figure out how to make the game exciting for people who've been here for 10 years. That's not going to happen very easily. And that they're putting a little bit of effort into it, I think, is a good idea of the priorities. You really need to put a lot of effort into the generations that's coming into the game now. Those are your customers, the bulk of your customers in 2 years, by
yeah, they must
far.
love red dots. Like apparently,
But yeah, well, if those red dots work for those new people and they get used to it, all the people complaining about it at some point will go extinct or not care or get used to it. Who knows what? And that's the kind of change I mean. I don't think the red dots necessarily are good or tamed in the way they should be, but if you're thinking in those terms, I think you might be on the right track. Look at the new players coming into the game. That's your customer base in 2 years. You want to like make that as healthy as possible. And the guys that are complaining about things not being hard or this or that, those guys are going to go extinct at some point.
yeah, those are the people that have been playing your game loyally for 10 years and you just suddenly don't give a shit about anymore. That's
Yeah.
also a way to look at it, right?
No,
I understand, like from a company standpoint, I get it, but
I
I
think
feel like
those people who have been loyal for 10 years will continue to be loyal, I think, despite what happens to the game. Like they just will. But there are people that are, say, 5 to 7 years, or I don't know, maybe people have been playing for 10 years that are like, this game isn't fun anymore and I'm taking off. But those percentages of people, I don't think are the future. They're the past.
no, I agree. It's definitely makes sense from a company standpoint. I get it, but it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
whatever. It's fine. It's probably going to turn out fine for them in the end, but
it
it
will.
just
It'll
sucks a little
just be,
bit.
yeah, totally. I mean, EVE Online, the way you know it, is probably a time and place. It's both those things. It's not just one. And so now we're in a new era of it's a time and a place for new people to have their Apex experiences and stuff like that. It is constantly changing. What's cool about EVE, and no other game really has this, is all these histories are connected. So if you stick around, whether for the good and the bad, you're going to have the legacy of threading all that history with your own experience. And I think that's pretty cool for some people.
I'm likely to stick around in one way or another. I may just turn into a guy that just shit talks CCP all the time, but whatever.
I think there are people like you, honestly, that you reach a certain point in your EVE career where you're too well known not to ever not be affiliated with the game in some way or another. Even if in 20 years, when somebody says like, "You used to be Killah Bee, and you're married to my niece," oh, it's an honor to meet you.
So I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that would be really weird.
Dude,
right?
that's like it was a little side anecdote. I was playing. Obviously, I'm known for playing World of Warcraft every now and then, and I was like during the release of the last expansion. Like it's a while ago, and it was the BFA expansion. I think it was released in 2018 or something. Either way, I was doing dungeons, and I was like running around with the group. And sometimes when you don't fill a group in WoW, you invite somebody random from like a WoW community Discord or whatever to your group, right? So we were running this dungeon, and we were just like, it was a good run. It was a decent dude. But then he like noticed my name on Discord or whatever, because I never changed my name on Discord. He was like, "Wait, Are you the Killah Bee from Eve Online? And I'm like, oh no. I like the reason I wanted to play WoW was to like take a break from Eve, right? I like whenever I play WoW, I want to take a break from Eve. I don't want to have too much contact with the Eve community. I just kind of want to do like take a little break, you know? And this guy, he was a good healer, but for the rest of the run, he just wouldn't shut up about like, oh, I've read this article or I've seen this YouTube video. And it's like, bro, can we just do the dungeon? And I felt so bad, right? Because after the dungeon, I never played again with him. And he was, like I said, he was a good healer. He did a good job. I would probably have played with him again if he hadn't done that, right? It was just so awkward because all the dudes in my WoW guild that I always play with, they know that I come from Eve as well because some of them played Eve back in the day, and so you know, and obviously my entire guild started making fun of me as well because one dude started recording this second the dude started like spurging about how he knew me and shit, and they recorded it and they uploaded it on YouTube and then they started linking it in my guild Discord and
Jeez.
everybody started making fun and it was just so awkward. I was like, I just don't want that happening. Unironically, I'm just imagining like marrying my girl and then like some weird like nephew coming up, like, "Are you Killah Bee from Eve Online?" I'm like, "Oh, bro, no,
That'd be so weird.
get lost."
Yeah.
That'd be
Oh,
hilarious.
the perils of Eve fame. Yeah, well, wait till the books come out. It's going to get worse for you.
What books?
Well, Andrew Groen's polishing up. I think it should be out soon, probably by
But how? Like,
FanFest.
there's no way. There's no way that there's that much about me in that book because he's literally never talked to me once, right? So I don't know how you gotten any info on me.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how it works. I think people will have to reference you. I don't think there's any way to talk about World War B or Casino War.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm
And
very.
this book may end at it's probably going to end at Casino War, so it may not even get into it. So it may be another 4 years.
Yeah,
5
we'll
years.
see. I wouldn't mind being a main character in a book. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Well, if the book is going to be accurate, that you're going to be in there. Huh. Interesting. That's so you have fans outside or groupies outside of Eve Online. That's hilarious. That's terrible, actually. That's terrible. I feel your pain. All right, man. Thanks for talking to us. Let's see what else we have. I think we're done. Yeah, all right. Look for somebody to raid. All right. Thanks for coming around today. We're going to wrap up. And
I think I'm going to get sushi.
Is that a person or is that a food?
Oh, I'm talking about the food because I got home from work and I hopped on immediately. I didn't have any food yet, so I'm just like while we were talking, I was like looking up websites if I could order some food. But I have a sushi place really close by. I can probably just go over and get some sushi. Just wanted to throw that in there real quick.
Do it. You deserve it. No, thanks for coming in and telling us what was going on. Appreciate the update. Next week, we're going to have some people from, I believe, Ranger Regiment or the North. So we're still going to cover this all week and into next week. I think it's a big thing. This war is winding down, but it is a very important SOV change that's happening. But I think it also marks in my opinion, it looks like the slow destruction of Dead Coalition. Don't know how flattened it will be after all this, but when you see people break off like that, it looked like could be the end of the coalition. So we'll check it out. All right, we're going to deliver you to Torvald Uros, a friend of ours, Udus. Check him out. Good PvP, good streamer. And thank you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.